There's a lot of weapons in Destiny 2. The Gunsmith alone has over 50 weapons in his loot pool. In this week at Bungie post authored by community manager DMG, it was stated that Gunsmith materials will be removed from every player's inventory. Now's the best time to throw them at the good old Banshee and see what we get back. This won't be a full list of everything he has, just what I believe everyone should look for before completely dismantling every drop he gives you. Let's get started. First, let's get the Warmind cell weapons out of the way. Starting off with the 7 Seraph weapons, keep in mind this will be from the mindset of a PvE main. So, starting off with the 7 Seraph Carbine, we have, I would say, high caliber rounds for extra flinch. You'll either want to go for auto loading holster or 4th times the charm, and Vorpal weapon. Mainly for GM purposes, you know, they have a lot more range than normal auto rifles, and then that Vorpal weapon plus 4th times the charm will give you that extra ability to overload champions. Maybe you can get a mag extending perk, which won't be as much of a detriment if you go auto loading holster, and as well as helps with 4th time to charm. All right, for the 7 Seraph CQC, there's really only one role that's worth grabbing in my opinion, and that's obviously assault mag, and then either lead from gold or auto loading holster and Vorpal weapon. Vorpal weapon is 15% on special weapons. You know, that's pretty much it. You know, you get that extra bump to 90 rounds per minute with assault mag. Barrels don't really matter, but you definitely want to avoid barrel shroud and maybe trench barrel. It's not as good as it used to be. Melee builds are usually centric around 1-2 punch, not trench barrel, so that's pretty much it for this weapon. For me, 7 Seraph Saw is probably the best out of all the legendary arc machine guns we have available. And if I were to go for a roll, I would definitely say either field prep, auto loading, or clown cartridge for extra in the mag, and firing line actually over Vorpal weapon, because Vorpal weapon got debuffed to 10% on heavy weapons, and firing line, as long as you hit your headshots with your teammates next to you, you'll get that extra 20% precision damage. So I would definitely go for that over Vorpal weapon. But if you get Vorpal weapon, I wouldn't be mad at you. Get yourself a mag increasing perk, and maybe either high caliber rounds for extra flinch, flare mag roll for extra reload speed. The 7 Seraph Officer Revolver is probably going to benefit from the full auto retrofit coming next season, given that it is a 180 hand cannon. A lot of people don't show respect to the 180 archetype for reasonable reasons. They don't usually have the best range, and they are not necessarily the best in PvE. But I remember last time there was overload hand cannon. This weapon got me through some rough times, especially through the Blastway GM. So overload hand cannon may not be here next time, but you never know when it'll be back. So if I were to give a recommendation, I would definitely say go for 4th times the charm or ambitious assassin. You can get away with threat detector since this is a little bit more close range of a hand cannon. Get yourself a mag increasing perk, as well as in the next column you can either go for Vorpal weapon or time payload. Honestly, I would prefer if you went with time payload, because overload, and you never know, maybe we'll get barrier hand cannon. So these 2 perks right here, Vorpal weapon, get that nice 20% boost to champion damage, as well as time payload, which gives you just a nice extra damage on top of giving you that extra flinch on any enemy that's trying to bear down upon you, give you some time to breathe. As well as whenever a champion mod decides to come back, this will probably be one of the better hand cannons in my opinion to go for. 7 Seraph sidearm will also more than likely benefit from the full auto retrofit that should be coming next season very well. So if I were to recommend, definitely avoid getting full auto trigger system, since you won't be needing that anymore. You won't need auto loading holster. Honestly, I would definitely say either go for threat detector, since this is a little bit closer range of a sidearm, as well as demolitionist, right here, and Vorpal Weapon. Those are the only PvE perks I necessarily care to recommend. Surrounded would be a okay backup, but honestly, Vorpal Weapon is the end all be all when it comes down to primary weapons for the most part. You know, because you have infinite ammo for there, and once you run out of special ammo or heavy ammo, this is pretty much your only option for boss damage as well as champion damage. And then obviously you have Demolitionist to get your grenade ability back. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of grenade centric builds next season. It's one of the reasons why they reduced the cooldowns for next season, so we'll see. And then obviously you'll get yourself a mag increasing perk. The only Ikelos weapon I will recommend is the Ikelos SMG, especially over the 7th Sheriff because of the higher rate of fire. If anything for PvE, Vorpal Weapon does just fine. You can also go with Disruption Break to increase your kinetic damage whenever you break a shield in PvE. Demolitionist honestly as well for grenade builds and either subsistence or threat detector if you're really up close range. And that's pretty much it. Get yourself a mag increasing perk. I feel like this is going to become a meme of this video. Yeah, that's pretty much it, honestly. All right, now to the other world drops that you can get from the Gunsmith. We'll start off with the Gnawing Hunger. In the first column, I would say either subsistence, field prep, gives you a full magazine. You also can increase your reload speed and stow speed while you're crouching, or auto loading holster. So on the other column, you can't really go wrong, especially if you're going with subsistence. You would either go with Rampage or Swashbuckler. You could either go with Demolitionist as well. But if you are going to go subsistence, I would avoid going kill clip and multi-kill clip, obviously because it reloads your magazine for getting kills. If you were going to go with kill clip or multi-kill clip, I would say field prep would probably be your best bet for reloading while you're crouched. And that's pretty much it. It's a really good auto rifle. Too bad you can't get the curated roll, because I mean, overflow is probably one of the best perks you can get for PvE, especially if you're running special weapon and heavy weapon. Well, you're always going to be running a heavy weapon, but if you're running a primary special setup, you definitely want to get overflow, but obviously you can't get that. And of course, as always, if you already heard, mag increase perk, I would say you could go with flared magwell if you don't get any mag increasing perk to get that extra reload speed and stability. And either stability masterwork, which you don't necessarily need because it's got 49 stability. That's good enough for PvE. If you do get Rampage though, I would suggest going for Rampage spec if you're going to slay out ads. I know Rampage isn't necessarily the best perk, but it's one of the ones that are best for this weapon right now. Scathelocke is an oldie but a goodie. It is a reprised weapon from Destiny 2 Vanilla. This one's going to be short and sweet. You can either go subsistence in the first column or surplus in the first column. And in the second column, you have the options of multi-kill clip, Rampage, or Adrenaline Junkie for damage increasing perks. And I'm going to throw a little bit one of one into a toss-up for Osmosis. Osmosis is a underrated perk, especially if you have like a solar and a void weapon in your special and heavy slot. You're running an arc subclass, you throw a grenade, and now your Scathelocke is an arc weapon. So especially right now where Arbalest seems to be the king of breaking shields, well, it is the king of breaking shields. If you don't want to use Arbalest, run an Osmosis weapon in your first slot and you'll be able to break all 3 shields. And this will be really good synergistic for Charge of Light builds, especially if you run the Charge of Light mod shield break charge, where you break a shield and you get a stack of Charge of Light. So keep that in mind. Whispering Slab is another easy one. You'll definitely want to go with Archer's Tempo, which is the main one. You could accept Killing Wind, which gives you some weapon range for getting kills. You get a little bit of handling and mobility on top of that as well. Vorpal weapon is the obvious play. Get that extra 20% damage to champions as well as other boss type enemies. You also have the option of swashbuckler for chaining kills or multi kills. Once you start ramping that up, you'll definitely want to go with fiberglass arrow, gives you a little bit of accuracy, as well as elastic string to decrease your draw time. Or you could go with polymer string, and then demolitionist wouldn't be bad too. You also have a option of getting sympathic arsenal, which reloads after your final blow for all stowed weapons. This is underrated for PvE, and for masterwork, honestly, draw time masterwork is your best bet, but you can get some accuracy as well. So accuracy or draw time masterwork, maybe reload speed. We have ourselves the Cartesian Coordinate. First column, you got Feeding Frenzy. You also have Lead from Gold. Nothing else really sticks out to me. Maybe you can get away with Slideways. Second column, I would prefer if you went with Vorpal weapon, and then maybe you can go with Swashbuckler for, you know, add slaying capability, and you get yourself a charge time masterwork. I know you lose some impact, but it's worth it for the faster fire rate. And then you would either want accelerated coils for faster charge time. I know once again you lose some impact damage, but it's worth it for overall DPS. Or you can counteract that with liquid coils for increased impact damage for a slower charge time. For Truthteller, your best option for me is probably going to go to auto loading holster in the first column. It would be acceptable to go for field prep, get that extra magazine in reserves, maybe even Feeding Frenzy as a last resort. In the following column, I would highly suggest Disruption Break for breaking shields of enemies in PvE, or Demolitionist to get your grenade ability back, as well as when you throw a grenade, it automatically reloads the weapon, so you can toss out 2 grenades rapidly back to back. Last resort would probably be Swashbuckler. I don't necessarily care too much for multi-kill clip, but if you can get more than 1 kill on 1 grenade, go for it. I honestly would prefer blinding grenades. I don't know why it's not rated high on Gunsmith, but for PvE, blinding grenades over spike grenades. You're not going for kills in in-game content. A lot of the times, especially if you're using a grenade launcher, you're trying to keep the ads off your back. If you find yourself surrounded, blinding grenades will save your life. Now, unfortunately, if you do not get this, you can go concussive grenades, which has a smaller time of blinding, but is good enough if you aren't able to get blinding grenades in PvE. Spike grenades, sure, you can use this if you're going for kills, say if you have multi-kill clip, but honestly, the best perk here, in my opinion, is blinding grenades. And you have your choice between linear compensator, quick launch, smart drift control. In terms of masterwork, honestly, blast radius, because blinding grenades. You want to get as much blast radius as you can for blinding grenades. Dire Promise, you'll either want to go with triple tap, rapidly landing precision hits, return 1 round to the magazine, or you can go with overflow, picking up special heavy ammo bricks, reloads this weapon beyond capacity. I believe it goes up to like 21 rounds. And then on the right column, the only option really is Swashbuckler for PvE. I like this. This is one of the rolls I have sitting in my vault. I break it out every once in a while. Unfortunately, Fatebringer kind of overtakes this one, but if you don't have a Fatebringer in your kinetic slot, definitely try and see if you can get yourself a Dire Promise. Either go with high caliber rounds for increased French on like low tier to mid tier enemies. Get yourself either a mag increasing perk, or ricochet rounds to give you a little bit more range and stability. In terms of masterworks, you'll probably want to go for range or stability. Osmosis, once again, is the underrated play here. If you're missing out, if you're trying to get, you know, cover all your bases when it comes down to elements, and or if you're like, say you're running a void subclass or have a void weapon, if you don't want to waste your void special ammo or heavy, throw a grenade, and then you automatically have a void primary weapon until you stow it. True Prophecy is short and sweet. Overflow in the first column, either time payload or explosive payload in the second column. Rampage, I wouldn't really bother, especially if you have the option of time payload or explosive payload. But if you wanted to settle, you could settle for Rampage, put a Rampage spec on there. Annual Skate is another short and sweet one. Triple tap, time payload, maybe Swashbuckler. You could also settle for Surplus. I don't necessarily like multi-kill clip. Maybe if you're trying to go for a ability build, you can go for Wellspring. Wellspring is definitely not bad considering the cooldown changes that has come. Tarantula doesn't have too much going for it, but it is unique in the fact that it is the only arc linear fusion rifle that you can attain currently in the game. They might bring more during Witch Queen, you don't know, but for now, if I were to recommend a role, definitely go with Feeding Frenzy. If you want to go with a little bit of ad clear, field prep for extra ammo reserves, maybe Wellspring for builds. More than likely you would probably go for kill clip, especially if you're going with Feeding Frenzy or field prep, and either Dragonfly for a little bit of extra explosive damage, maybe Box Breathing for boss damage. You'll probably want to go for either Accelerated Coils for a little bit faster DPS, or Liquid Coils for a little bit more impact damage. Maybe Enhanced Battery if you want to get a little bit more into the magazine, and probably either a Charge Time Masterwork, maybe a Reload Speed Masterwork, or Handling Masterwork. Contingency Plan has seen a recent boom in PvP, but I will say that it does have some, at least one or two good roles for PvE. You can go with Outlaw or Subsistence, maybe even Surplus in the first column, and in the second column you'd probably best be going for Frenzy for a 15% increase to damage while engaged in combat. I believe it starts after like 5 seconds of engagement, which means you're either shooting an enemy or getting shot. And One for All, hitting 3 targets increases your damage for a moderate duration, which is about 10 seconds, and you get about 35% boost. The one I currently use has Subsistence and One for All. You can go for a mag increasing perk right here, maybe a reload speed increasing perk when flared magwell. Barrel options don't really matter to me. You can go for a little bit more range if you want to keep more distance, since 260s tend to have a little bit less range than most scout rifles. Either go for stability, handling, reload speed. Masterwork doesn't necessarily matter that much. Eternal Blazon, that's probably not how you pronounce that, but I'm going to say it anyways. You have some good options. Go with Overflow right here for picking up special or heavy ammo bricks. You get like double in the magazine, always good in my opinion. You could always go with Rapid Hit, full auto. Probably avoid that considering that they're going to be giving an accessibility option for full auto next season, so probably avoid that. In the second column, more likely should go for One for All. In my personal opinion, it's probably the best one here. Go for Disruption Break for breaking champion shields, considering that we're going to be getting Scout Rifle Barrier next season, so not bad there. Maybe Kill Clip. Thresh is kind of like acceptable if you couldn't get anything else. Ricochet rounds for a little bit extra range and stability, high caliber rounds for a little bit more flinch, or a mag increasing perk. Barrel or scope options don't necessarily matter too much to me. Doesn't really matter what masterwork you get as long as you get the rolls that you want. Night Watch, the former king of anti-barrier scout rifle, is probably going to make a prominent return next season. Probably best to go for the curated role, which is available during the new light quest. I don't know if that's going away. They didn't say it was going away, so definitely try and get the curated role. But if you don't feel like doing that quest, if you're turning in anything if you're turning in all of your gunsmith materials to the gunsmith before the end of the season, I would say rapid hit, subsistence, even outlaw would not be bad in the first column. In the second column, explosive payload. That is all. If it's anti-barrier scout rifle next season, explosive payload is the way to go. Rampage is acceptable, maybe multi-kill clip and demolicious, but the role I want you to focus on while you're turning in all your gunsmith materials is explosive payload in that second column. Mag increasing perk, flared magwell if you want extra reload speed. Barrel options don't matter that much. Masterwork doesn't matter that much. Get yourself an explosive payload Night Watch for next season. For the Deicide, in terms of the first column, I would probably say go for lead from gold so you can get some extra ammo from picking up heavy. You could get away with dual loader. It slows your reload speed but evens out because you're reloading 2 bullets into the mag every single time. Unfortunately, it does not have assault mag, but that's fine considering that it is a full auto shotgun anyway. My perfect role for this would probably be Grave Robber and 1-2 punch. Hitting an enemy with every pellet in the shot increases melee damage for a short time, especially if you are a Titan out there and you want to be the punchy boy, especially with the hammer throws. This is the role for you. You can also go for Vorpal weapon, surplus, anything but Grave Robber because you're not going to be punching anything. Honestly, demolitionist wouldn't be the play here because shotguns tend to be something that you want to chunk something big with. These other perks just don't really matter. So it's either Vorpal weapon or 1-2 punch. And if you're going for 1-2 punch, try and get Grave Robber. Mag increasing perk, barrel options don't matter. Masterwork don't necessarily matter as much, but if you're going to be close up, probably try and see if you can get one with handling masterwork. For first in, last out, you'll definitely want assault mag, auto loading holster, and Vorpal weapon for boss DPS / champion death. And that's pretty much it. Doesn't matter the barrel or the masterwork. Maybe if you cared, you'd go for handling speed for swap speed. But other than that, I'm not really necessarily going to be able to confidently give you any other roles to go for. Shepherd's Watch is a unique sniper in terms of it is one of 2 kinetic snipers that can roll with firing line. In the second column, maybe if you can't get firing line, you would go with frenzy for PvE, as well as osmosis if you want having 3 elemental weapons for throwing a grenade. First column, you'll want lead from gold, getting a little bit of extra ammo for picking up heavy. Maybe no distractions because flinch and PvE exists. I don't know why, but it does. Mag increasing perk, barrel option doesn't really matter to me. Masterwork is debatable. Stochastic Variable, in my opinion, you'll probably want feeding frenzy the most. Backup plan would be ambitious assassin or surplus. In the right column, you'll probably either want dragonfly for add clear, of course. Same thing with multi-kill clip. For builds, you'll probably want wellspring, get a high caliber rounds, or for extra flinch, maybe ricochet rounds for a little bit more stability. Mag increasing perk. Pick your pick of masterwork. Escape velocity, I personally believe this is superior to the multi-back and at least competition for the extraordinary rendition for PvE, mainly because of overflow. And in the second column, you'll get Vorpal weapon. could get away with surrounded, but putting yourself in a situation where surrounded would proc would probably end up very bad for you in PvE, especially in in-game. Maybe osmosis if you don't get it, but primarily shoot for vorpal weapon, overflow, mag increasing perk, maybe a little bit more stability for console players, but other than that, don't really worry too much about the masterwork if you get overflow and vorpal. Next up, we have the class specific swords. You're really only going for these because they're unique to each class, but for the Titan, I'm only probably going to recommend the Relentless Strikes and Vorpal Weapon. For Eternity's Edge, you'll probably go for Relentless Strikes, Tireless Blade, and Surrounded is the best I could probably do for you. For the Hunters, I'm probably just going to recommend Relentless Strikes, maybe One for All, especially if you're going for multi-kills. Relentless Strikes, One for All, these swords aren't necessarily that great for PvE. But on the other hand, you also have the potential of getting the Fallen Guillotine, which I would recommend Relentless Strikes or Tireless Blade, and either Whirlwind Blade, but you could also do Surrounded. Swordmaster's Guard will probably be the best for you since you're probably going to want to spin to win on that heavy attack. With the Temptation's Hook, I would either go with Relentless Strikes, but this being a caster frame, you probably want to rely a little bit more on its long range capability with Tireless Blade. Get yourself a Swordmaster's Guard for increased charge rate, and go for Vorpal Weapon for boss DPS. If you find yourself feeling close range with this weapon, go with Surrounded. You can still pull off the long range attack in close range, and maybe Whirlwind Blade, but that's the least likely out of all three that I would consider good. That's all for the weapons I wanted to highlight for this video. I'm trying to do more scripted, or at the very least bullet point focused content, so my uploads may be a bit more unscheduled outside of the weekly Xur inventory reviews. Let me know if you like this new format, or if you don't, or even if you want me to try and find a happy medium in the comment section down below. Also, feel free to list your recommendations you feel I might have overlooked in the comment section. Thank you to everyone who made it to the end of the video. If you like my content, found this video useful, and want to help me out with the algorithm, don't forget to